On February 26, 1964, an Ohio man named John slipped in the bathroom and hit his head on the tub. He was in a hotel room, not his own bathroom at home. He just quit his old job because it was time for a change, and the hunt for a new job took him to a lot of hotels. But this slapstick bathroom fall somehow made national and international news, and we're still trying to understand it today. John was shaving. He'd actually just finished, and he wanted to put his razor back in the cabinet above the sink. It had those sliding mirrored doors, and of course they were stuck, so actually John told his doctor exactly what happened. When I tried to slide the mirror doors shut, they wouldn't close. I realized the track was jammed, so I decided to remove one of the panels and see what the trouble was. I was standing on a scatter rug that covered the tile floor as I grabbed the panel with both hands and removed it. Suddenly, I realized I was slipping, but I tried to hold onto the mirror and keep it from breaking rather than let go and use one of my hands to break my fall. I began to spin in as I fell, and my head banged down hard on the edge of the tub. I hit just above and behind the left ear. The mirror flew from my grip and crashed to the floor. Flying pieces of glass cut my hands and face. I didn't pass out. I was in a state of shock. Well, the mirror didn't survive, but John did. The whole progression didn't make a lot of sense, though. So what happened? The how wasn't actually the pressing concern, because John spent the next 6 months feeling dizzy and nauseated every time he moved his head. He lost 20 pounds, his body got weak, and he had to withdraw from consideration for that job. But there's a chicken and egg situation here. Did that debilitating dizziness cause his fall? Or did the fall cause his dizziness? In 1964, it was hard to take a real look inside, but his doctors had a sense of what was happening. John had a fairly standard case of vertigo, likely as a result of labyrinthitis, which is the inflammation of the labyrinth of the inner ear. Smacking his skull on the bathtub transferred force through John's temporal bone into the 3 fluid-filled semicircular canals, then onto his otolith organs, which are movement sensory mechanisms in the vestibule of the labyrinth. Fish and frogs and mammals and humans, all vertebrates have this vestibular system. The saccule processes vertical movements, and the utricle handles the horizontal. Inside those organs are calcium carbonate otoliths, tiny particles in a goo that rests on hair cells that send nerve signals to the brain to inform it of movement. It's a lot like how the gyroscope in your phone measures angular velocity to tell it which way is up. John could have had benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, BPPV, but it would be another 15 years before Dr. John Epley discovered what we now call the Epley maneuver, a series of movement exercises that resettles displaced otoliths. It's one of several physical maneuvers meant to jostle all the little bits back into the right place to stabilize balance signals. But there may have been a great deal more to it with John. He'd spent most of his adult life as a pilot. He dropped out of college after Pearl Harbor to enlist in the U.S. Army Air Corps and eventually the Navy's aviation program. He trained on the F-4F Wildcat and then the F-4U Corsair. He was stationed at Midway and then the Marshall Islands, where his fighter squadron flew 57 combat missions. John was awarded 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses and 10 Air Medals. After the war, he went from California to China to Guam and then trained in Quantico. The Korean War put him back into the cockpit, this time in an F-9F Panther. He flew 63 missions in the Panther, and few of them safely. John returned to base twice with more than 250 holes in his plane. Then he tacked on another 27 missions in the F-86 in North Korea's Mig Alley. He even flew with Boston Red Sox left fielder Ted Williams, Teddy Ballgame, the Splendid Splinter, baseball's most methodical hitter, who for the second time had left his Hall of Fame career to serve in a war. He'd hit .406 12 years before being John's wingman. He described John the fighter pilot as absolutely fearless, the best I ever saw. It was an honor to fly with him. Did the intense gravitational forces of so many inhuman accelerations and changes to angular momentum jiggle John's vestibular otoliths? Yeah, probably. But why would it show for the first time more than a full decade later? Well, it may have had something to do with the last flight John had taken. 2 years before slipping on a bathroom floor, John Glenn climbed inside the spacecraft Friendship 7 to pilot the Mercury Atlas 6 mission. He spent 4 hours, 55 minutes, and 23 seconds in flight, during which he fully orbited the Earth 3 times before re-entering the atmosphere in a fireball and splashing down north of Puerto Rico. He was the first American to orbit the Earth. Alan Shepard was the first American in space, and he also had inner ear problems only after his spaceflight. He said all the trainees had gotten sick at the Mastiff, the multiple access space test inertia facility, Shepard claimed that none of these ear problems were related to spaceflight. The Soviets had concerns. Dr. Bernard Wagner of New York Medical College pointed out at the time that the Soviets had put an inner ear specialist on their last multi-man rocket. They seemed to know something that the Americans didn't, or at least they were admitting that there was something they didn't know enough about. But John Glenn's bathroom accident pushed to the forefront all manners of research on what spaceflight might do to the human body. How the cardiovascular system functioned in zero gravity, the effects of spaceflight on circulation, digestion, every normal, mundane physiological function necessary for life. And not just the immediate effects. For the first time, the world could study astronauts, Soviets and Americans, who'd not just gone into space, but who had existed on Earth for a while after. Did the extraordinary physical demands of our first attempts at spaceflight result in John Glenn's vertigo? Well, we still don't know for sure. But he did make it back to space. In 1998, 36 years after his Mercury mission, John Glenn spent nearly 10 full days in space as part of the STS-95 mission of the Space Shuttle Discovery. He was 77 years old. Oh, and John eventually did get that job. His bathroom fall forced him to withdraw from the campaign trail for a 1964 Senate seat. But after his retirement from NASA, he spent 25 years as the U.S. Senator for the state of Ohio. He announced his decision not to seek re-election on the 35th anniversary of his Friendship 7 flight because he felt he was just getting too old. John Glenn, a pioneer of space travel, lamented that there is still no cure for the common birthday. And if you didn't know the story of a guy named John slipping and falling in the bathroom and the uncertain origin of his otolith displacement, well, that's because they never told you.